So, new day, new episode of The Reality Check. Growing up today honestly feels very different to how it's always been described. It feels like there's pressure everywhere, pressure from school, pressure from social media, and pressure from expectations about success and what you're meant to be doing with your life. In this episode, I want to talk honestly about what growing up actually feels like right now. Not the polished version you see online, not the motivational quotes, but the real side of it. The stress, the comparisons, the constant feeling that you should already have things figured out even when you don't. I'm speaking from my own experience, from moving through school and into college, and from different conversations I've had with many people my age and people younger than me, and a few people older than me. Even though we're at different stages, a lot of the pressure still feels the same. This isn't about having all the answers or telling anyone how to live their life. It's about starting conversations that people don't usually have and creating a space where it's okay to admit that growing up today can be confusing, overwhelming, and sometimes even exhausting. So, join me in this episode, just me talking about how I've grown up, breaking down the pressures we face, where they come from, and how they affect us, and why it's okay to not have everything worked out in life until you're older. So, let's get everything out of the way now and explain who I am and how I've grown up. As you all know, my name's Harmeet. I'm just your regular 17-year-old kid living a life, but I've had a past. For me, growing up hasn't been simple, and I think that's where a lot of my perspective and my personality comes from. When I was 11, my dad passed away a few months after my birthday, just after New Year's, and that's what changed everything in my life. At the time, I didn't fully understand what it meant. I didn't know what losing a parent was going to be like, but as I got older, I realized how much of an impact it had on me and in my life. Losing a parent early doesn't just affect you in one little moment. It follows you and clings around your whole life. It changes the way you see the world, the way you handle emotions, and the way you grow up. There were things I had to deal with earlier than most people my age, and a lot of it I dealt with silently. I never really had anybody there for me, and I didn't have the best relationship with my own mother, which is something I deeply regret. In terms of relations, I would say your parents are like your best friends. They're always going to be your day one supporters and be there for you no matter what you do. Your mother and your father, they're the most important people to you in life. Always keep them close and don't betray them or their trust. That's my advice to all of you. So then after all of that, I became quite distant from my mom and my wider family. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to express what I was feeling. I didn't know how to talk about grief, confusion, or anger, so instead I just kept things to myself. Over time, that distance became normal, even though it didn't feel right. School didn't really help with that either. In secondary school, everything felt like it was about results, behavior, and fitting into a system that didn't really care what you were going through outside of it. You're expected to turn up, focus, perform, and keep going regardless of what's happening in your personal life. And in terms of mates and friends, they always expected you to be this perfect figure where when I was going through this, I always got excluded for the littlest of things which had no meaning to actual life itself. And that's what made me realize that it's hard to find real friends growing up. Look at me now. I don't have any of my primary school or secondary school mates surrounding me. I'm my own person and definitely a free one. I went through school carrying things that no one really saw. On the outside, I might have seemed fine, but mentally it was a lot. There were times where motivation dropped, confidence disappeared, and I questioned myself constantly. Mental health isn't something that's spoken about enough, especially for young people, and even when it is, it doesn't always feel like there's real support behind it. Social media made that even harder. You see people smiling, succeeding, and living what looks like perfect lives, whilst you're struggling just to get through the day. It makes you feel like you're behind, like something's wrong with you, when in reality, you're just dealing with things most people don't show or talk about. Fitting in was a problem too. You tried to get along with all these people whose online personality was way different to their real life personality, and that's what made me see everybody differently. As I got older and moved into college, I thought things would feel lighter. In some ways they did, but in other ways the pressure just changed. Now it wasn't just about grades. It was about my future, my career, and whether I was doing enough. Studying networks and cybersecurity is something I enjoy, but even then there's this underlying pressure to succeed and to make something of yourself and to not waste time. A lot of the time, I felt like I've had to figure things out on my own. That shaped who I am. It's made me more independent, more reflective, but it's also made things heavier mentally. There are days where everything feels manageable and days where it doesn't. And I think that's something people need to hear, that it's normal, especially when you've been through loss or distance or pressure growing up. This podcast and this episode is my way of being honest about that. I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm sharing it because I know there are people listening who have lost someone, who feel distant from their family, who struggle a lot at school, or who are quietly dealing with their own mental health. If there's one thing I've learned so far, it's that growing up isn't about having everything figured out. It's about surviving what you've been through, learning from it, and slowly building yourself up, even when it's hard. And it's okay if that takes time. Everything I've spoken about so far isn't just my experience, it's part of what growing up today feels like for a lot of people in our generation. There's a level of pressure now that starts way earlier than it should. From a young age, you're told that your choices and grades matter and that your future depends on what you do right now. Even when people say it's meant to motivate you, it doesn't feel motivating at all. It feels heavier than anything. It's like one wrong move can mess up everything. People act as if when you fail something, the whole world's going to come to an end, or that people will see you as a failure. But who actually cares? Because you're your own person. You're the one that chooses what you want to do and who you're presented as. And that's one thing you should be proud of. In school especially, there's this constant sense of being judged, not just by teachers, but by classmates and results, and by how well you fit in. You're expected to perform, behave, and succeed even when you're still figuring out who you are. And when you don't fit into that system, it can make you feel like you're failing at life, even though you're just growing and finding your purpose and passions. It's a feeling you will hate, but you have to go through no matter what. Social media adds another layer to that pressure. We're the first generation to grow up constantly online and constantly connected and always comparing ourselves to one another. You open your phone and you're immediately faced with people your age who seem happier, richer, more confident, or even more successful. Even when you know that most of it isn't real, it still gets to you. You have to learn to ignore these things, remove yourself from all these social medias, and truly go into the world to find out what the world really is. What makes it worse is how different people can be online compared to real life. Someone can look like they've got everything together on social media, but in reality, they're struggling just as much as everyone else. That disconnect messes with how we see ourselves and how we judge our own progress. I'm like that myself. I'm not the perfect human being. I can be the most loving and friendliest person in person, but online I can be horrible and mean. And that just shows no person is perfect. And honestly, I'll put it out there. I know I'm like that sometimes. It might change your perspective of who I am, but those who truly know me, deep down, they know how loving and how caring I really can be when I do care and put effort into something. Then there's the idea of success. Growing up today, success is usually measured by money, status, or how early you achieve something. There's this unspoken expectation that by your late teens or early 20s, you should already have a plan, a career path, and a clear direction. And if you don't, it feels like you're falling behind. But the truth is, most people don't have it figured out. They're just trying to make it look like they do. Everyone's on a different timeline, and growing up isn't a race, even though it often feels like one. When you put all of this together, the pressure, the comparisons, the expectations, it explains why so many young people feel stressed, anxious, or lost. It's not because we're weak or unmotivated, it's because the world we're growing in demands a lot from us, often without giving us the space to breathe or figure things out. This is why I wanted to talk about this in this episode, not to complain, but to be honest, because growing up today isn't easy, and pretending that it is doesn't help anyone. Talking about it really does. From my own experience, growing up hasn't been simple, and that's taught me a lot about handling pressure, loss, and expectations. I've realized that it's okay to struggle, it's okay to not have everything figured out, and it's okay to take things at your own pace. For me, being honest with myself about what I was feeling, even when it was painful or confusing, has made a huge difference. Pretending everything is fine doesn't help. Facing it, even quietly, slowly builds resilience. One of the biggest things I'd recommend is taking a step back from social media when it feels too much. It's easy to get trapped in comparisons and feeling like everyone else has their life together. The truth is, most people don't. They're just really good at hiding it. So give yourself the permission to disconnect sometimes and focus on what really makes you feel grounded, happy, or at peace. Another thing I've learned is to find people you can really talk to. That doesn't have to be a counselor or a professional. It could be a close friend, a sibling, or someone who truly listens. Even sharing small things can lighten the weight of what you carry. If talking feels too hard, find your own way to process things. Writing in a journal, listening to music, gaming, creating, exercising, whatever helps you understand yourself and release tension. Find your little niche, away from others, and be happy off of the internet. Make those friendships stronger and truly learn what it's like without having all of these unnecessary stresses. Also, don't feel pressure to fit into someone else's definition of success. Growing up today, we're told we have to achieve, plan, and have everything mapped out by a certain age. That's not reality. Everyone's timeline is different. Some people find their path early, some later, and some have to try multiple times before they figure it out. That's normal, and it doesn't make you behind or failing. What matters is that you keep moving forwards, learning from your experiences, and building the life you want step by step. As you reflect on your own journey, think about the pressures you feel from school, from friends, from family, from social media. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What do I need right now? on what small steps can I take today to make things a little easier on myself. Because even small steps matter, and even small moments of progress are worth celebrating. At the end of the day, growing up isn't about having all the answers. It's about showing up for yourself, surviving what life throws at you, and slowly building your own understanding of who you are and what you want. Everyone struggles, everyone feels lost at times, and everyone carries things that others don't see. But that doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. So, as this episode closes, I want you to remember, take your time, be kind to yourself, and trust that your journey is yours alone. You don't need to compare, you don't need to rush, and you don't need to hide what you're going through. Keep going, keep reflecting, and keep building your life in your own way, because growing up isn't about perfection. It's about learning, surviving, and finding your place in the world one step at a time.